In this video, we are going to walk you through the full sequence of events as they unfolded from the first drone launch to the missile strikes on Iranian soil. We will examine the U.S. maritime blockade of Iran and what it means for global shipping. We will look at the economic warfare campaign running in parallel, including new Treasury sanctions. We will address Iran's disinformation response, which CENTCOM publicly refuted within hours. And we will assess what all of this means for oil markets, your daily life, and the trajectory of the broader US-Iran war. Stay with us, this story is moving fast. Let's start with what we know for certain, based on official statements from the US military and independent media reporting. The timeline begins before dawn on June 5. According to posts from Middle East Eye tracking live war coverage, the day started with Oman already halting crude oil loading following an explosion at a key terminal, a sign that the broader regional energy infrastructure was already under severe strain, now entering day 98 of the US-Iran war. At approximately 11:17 a.m. on June 5, SEC War announced that US forces had conducted a maritime interdiction and right-of-visit boarding of the sanctioned stateless vessel MT DAVINA in the Indian Ocean within the Indo-Pakistan area of responsibility. The statement made clear that international waters cannot be used as a shield by which reported that the U.S. military shot down 4 Iranian drones launched toward the Strait of Hormuz and struck Iranian coastal surveillance radar sites on Qeshm Island and Gorak on Iran's southern coast. Reuters added confirmation with a headline, U.S. strikes Iran radar sites after Iranian drone launch. The strikes were on Iranian sovereign territory. BBC World reported it directly, U.S. military says it struck Iranian drones and radar sites. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi then rejected remarks by Lebanon's president accusing Tehran of using Lebanon as a bargaining chip, signaling Iran's intent to continue defiant public posturing even as its military assets were being destroyed. In a separate but highly significant development, AJ English reported that the Pentagon had raised its assessment of an Israeli espionage threat against the United States to its highest level, a revelation that adds another explosive dimension to an already volatile regional picture. Let's put these events in their full strategic context, because what happened last night is not just a single military incident, it is part of a sustained, multi-layered campaign that has been building for months. The first question many viewers are asking is, why did Iran launch drones at the Strait of Hormuz now, knowing the likely US response? The short answer is that Iran may be testing the limits of the ceasefire framework that technically remains in effect. According to posts from CENTCOM, Iranian forces falsely claimed to have fired warning shots at U.S. warships, forcing them to retreat, a claim CENTCOM labeled explicitly false. This suggests Iran is simultaneously conducting military probes while running a parallel information campaign to manufacture the appearance of strength for a domestic audience. A second pressing question is, how does the economic pressure campaign interact with these military moves? On that front, Treasury Secretary Besson stated that Iran's economy is floundering and its military is decimated, announcing continued efforts to sever Iran's shadow fleet, shadow banking networks, and access to global trade. The State Department confirmed separately that the U.S. is sanctioning networks that have smuggled hundreds of millions of dollars in Iranian fuel. Axios broke an exclusive scoop that Trump's special envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner quietly traveled to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee to consult with nuclear experts, a signal that nuclear negotiations with Iran remain a possibility even as military operations continue. Senator Tom Cotton offered a starker view, stating that Iran has never won a war but has never lost a negotiation, adding that the U.S. military stands ready to finish the job if Tehran doesn't quickly come to their senses. Meanwhile, Foreign Policy argues that the oil and gas price spikes that followed the start of the US-Iran war are reshaping energy politics across the global south, meaning this conflict's economic shockwaves are already being felt by nations that have no direct role in it. Energy Intel notes that China has managed to weather the ongoing oil supply crisis so far, largely due to diversification trends that predate the current Strait of Hormuz near-standstill, which began on February 28. This is the broader architecture: military pressure, economic strangulation, disinformation countermeasures, and a back-channel nuclear diplomacy track, all running in parallel, all under extreme time pressure. Why did Iran launch drones at the Strait of Hormuz knowing the US would strike back? Iran may be testing ceasefire limits while running a domestic information campaign to project strength. CENTCOM's swift public rebuttal of Iranian false claims suggests Tehran is simultaneously probing militarily and manufacturing narratives for a home audience. Some analysts suggest Iran calculates that limited provocations keep pressure on for negotiation without triggering a full escalation. If military strikes are happening, why are Trump's envoys consulting nuclear experts for negotiations? The Axios scoop about Witkoff and Kushner visiting Oak Ridge suggests the administration may be pursuing a dual-track strategy: maximum military and economic pressure designed to force Iran to the table, while simultaneously preparing a technical framework for a potential nuclear deal. This may suggest Washington believes Iran is close to a breaking point where a deal becomes preferable to continued economic collapse. In the United States, the immediate consequences are felt at the gas pump and in the stock market. With Strait of Hormuz tanker traffic at near standstill since late February, energy analysts warn that sustained disruption will continue putting upward pressure on fuel prices. The Oak Ridge nuclear consultation signals that the U.S. political class understands this conflict cannot remain purely military indefinitely. The economic cost is real and growing. In the Gulf states Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE, the situation is existential. These nations sit directly in the conflict zone. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper met recently with senior leaders from all four countries, underscoring U.S. commitment to Gulf security. Kuwait's foreign minister met Secretary Rubio specifically to affirm U.S. commitment to keeping the Strait of Hormuz open and free. The UAE faces particular exposure following the May 17 drone strike on the Baraka nuclear power plant, a development the IAEA Director General personally visited the region to address. In Iran itself, the economic picture, according to Treasury Secretary Bessent, is one of an economy that is floundering with a military described as decimated. Some accounts are reporting that the shadow banking and fuel smuggling networks that have kept Iran's economy partially functional are being systematically dismantled. Sanctions are cutting deeper than at any previous point. In the global south and Asia, according to Foreign Policy, oil and gas price spikes from the US-Iran war are already reshaping energy politics. China, which has maintained oil supply through diversification trends predating the conflict, now watches the Strait disruption with growing strategic concern. As the world's largest importer of Gulf oil, Beijing has more to lose from extended closure than almost any other nation. In Europe, the energy crisis compounds existing pressures. IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol has described the current situation as the biggest energy security crisis the world has ever faced, warning that it will reshape global investment strategies. Europe, already strained by the Russia-Ukraine war's energy disruptions, now faces a second simultaneous supply shock from the Gulf. Now, to be fair, not everyone reads these events the same way. The strongest version of the opposing argument goes something like this: the United States is the aggressor in this confrontation. By imposing a naval blockade, an act of war under international law, and by striking sovereign Iranian territory, Washington has repeatedly escalated the conflict rather than seeking de-escalation. Iran's drone launches, in this framing, may be a measured response to an illegal blockade that has strangled its economy. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has pushed back firmly against framing that portrays Tehran as a passive actor being manipulated. According to posts from @AJ English, Iran's FM rejected characterizations that Tehran was being used as a bargaining chip in Lebanon negotiations. Chinese state media handle @MFA_China argued more broadly that U.S. actions globally demonstrate, in their words, hegemonic and bullying practices. And Senator Cory Booker raised a separate but pointed critique that U.S. cuts to global health infrastructure have made the world less safe on multiple fronts simultaneously, suggesting America's aggressive foreign posture comes with real costs at home and abroad. These perspectives are important to weigh. What is undisputed is that a U.S.-Iran ceasefire technically remains in effect, and yet active military exchanges occurred last night on both sides. That gap between theory and reality is the crux of the current crisis. Here is the unanswered question that should keep you up at night: Trump's envoys were meeting nuclear weapons experts in Tennessee at the same time U.S. forces were striking Iranian radar on Iranian soil. Is that a peace track or a war track? And does Tehran even know the difference? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Do you think the US-Iran conflict ends with a nuclear deal or a wider war? Hit like if you think this story is being underreported, and subscribe so you don't miss our next breakdown when this escalates, because it will.